Queen Margrethe II has already given Denmark the most extraordinary royal transition of modern times, but her recent health concerns have reminded the country of a much more emotional question: what happens when the woman who defined an entire era is no longer there? At 86, Queen Margrethe remains one of the most recognizable and deeply respected figures in Danish public life. Even after stepping down from the throne, her presence has continued to shape the royal family, the country's traditions, and the public image of the monarchy itself. But her abdication in January 2024 changed the future in a way few royal transitions ever do. Denmark did not have to wait for a death, a constitutional crisis, or a sudden announcement from a palace balcony before welcoming a new monarch. King Frederik X had already taken the throne. Queen Mary had already become Queen of Denmark. Crown Prince Christian had already become heir to the throne. That is why the eventual loss of Queen Margrethe, whenever that day comes, will not trigger a new reign. It will trigger something quieter, more personal, and perhaps even more powerful. It will mark the moment Denmark fully closes the chapter on the Margrethe era and looks at Frederik and Mary not as the new generation still guided by a beloved former queen, but as the undisputed center of the Danish monarchy. The recent concern around Queen Margrethe's health has naturally brought public attention back to her remarkable legacy. The palace confirmed that she was hospitalized and later discharged, with plans adjusted to allow her time to recover. Those updates prompted an outpouring of well wishes from royal watchers and members of the public. But they also revealed something important. Even after abdication, Queen Margrethe is not viewed as a distant former monarch. For many Danes, she remains a symbol of continuity, creativity, resilience, and national memory. Her story is unlike that of most modern monarchs. Queen Margrethe became queen in 1972 after the death of her father, King Frederik IX. She then spent more than 5 decades on the throne, becoming the longest reigning monarch in Danish history. During those years, Denmark changed dramatically. The country entered new political eras, faced global uncertainty, watched generations grow up, and saw the role of royalty evolve in public life. Through all of it, Margrethe remained a familiar figure, known not only for her royal duty but also for her love of art, design, theater, and history. Then came the moment that surprised Denmark and the world. On New Year's Eve in 2023, Queen Margrethe announced that she would abdicate. Just weeks later, on January 14, 2024, she signed the declaration that formally ended her reign. In that instant, her eldest son became King Frederik X, Mary became Queen Mary, and their eldest son became Crown Prince Christian. It was a historic handover, but it was also a carefully managed transition. There was celebration, ceremony, emotion, and a clear message that Denmark was moving forward. That is why the future will be so different from the moment Queen Margrethe herself became queen. In 1972, the death of King Frederik IX immediately changed the country's head of state. The crown passed in a moment of national mourning. In 2024, Queen Margrethe chose another path. She allowed her son and daughter-in-law to begin their reign while she was still alive, still present, and still able to offer a sense of stability. For Queen Mary, that transition has been especially significant. Mary entered the Danish royal family as an Australian-born commoner who met Crown Prince Frederik during the Sydney Olympics. Her journey from private citizen to crown princess was already one of the most watched royal stories in Europe. But, becoming queen brought a different level of responsibility. She is no longer simply supporting the future king. She is helping define the public face of the monarchy in real time. Queen Margrethe's presence has likely made that transition easier in ways the public may never fully see. Not through public interference or dramatic palace scenes, but through the quiet reassurance of experience. Margrethe knew the pressures of the role better than almost anyone alive. She understood how to balance ceremony with modern expectations, how to represent a country without entering politics, and how to carry the weight of tradition while allowing the institution to adapt. When Queen Margrethe is no longer present, Queen Mary's role will not change constitutionally. She is already queen. King Frederik is already the monarch. Crown Prince Christian is already first in line. But emotionally and symbolically, the family will enter a new phase. The public will likely look even more closely at Frederik and Mary as the sole guardians of the royal institution's future. That could place Queen Mary at the center of an even more demanding public role. She will be expected to preserve the dignity and warmth associated with Margrethe's reign while continuing to bring her own style to the monarchy. Mary has already developed a public identity through her work on health, social issues, culture, and women's rights. But the absence of Queen Margrethe would make the contrast between generations more visible. It would be the end of a living bridge between the old royal world and the new one. There is also a deeply human side to this story. Behind the titles, ceremonies, and public appearances is a family. Queen Margrethe is King Frederik's mother, Queen Mary's mother-in-law, and the grandmother of Crown Prince Christian, Princess Isabella, Princess Josephine, and Prince Vincent. Any future loss would first be a private family grief. The public would see formal tributes, flags at half-mast, memorial services, and national reflection. But the royal family would also be experiencing the same pain faced by families everywhere. The difference is that their mourning would take place under the eyes of an entire nation. For Denmark, the eventual passing of Queen Margrethe would likely become a moment of national remembrance rather than a moment of political uncertainty. The succession has already happened. The constitutional framework is already settled. There would be no need for a proclamation of a new king, because King Frederik X is already firmly established on the throne. Instead, the country would honor a former queen whose reign shaped more than half a century of Danish life. That distinction matters. It shows why Queen Margrethe's abdication was more than a retirement announcement. It was a strategic and emotional act of continuity. She gave Denmark time to adjust. She gave Frederik and Mary the chance to grow into their roles while the public could still see the family together. And she allowed the monarchy to move forward without the uncertainty that can follow a sudden change at the top. The question now is whether Queen Mary and King Frederik can turn that rare advantage into a lasting legacy of their own. They have inherited a monarchy with strong public support, a clear line of succession, and a royal family that has already demonstrated its ability to evolve. But they have also inherited enormous expectations. Queen Margrethe was not simply a monarch. She was an institution in herself. As Denmark watches her recovery and continues to celebrate her contribution, the bigger story is not about fear or speculation. It is about transition. It is about how a royal family prepares for the future while honoring the person who carried the crown for 52 years. And it is about the moment Queen Mary may fully step out from the shadow of a legendary queen and become, without question, one of the defining royal figures of her generation. Will Queen Margrethe's decision to abdicate be remembered as the move that gave King Frederik and Queen Mary the strongest possible foundation for the future? Share your thoughts in the comments, and remember to like, comment, subscribe, and share for more royal news, analysis, and stories.